My name is Peter Forbes, and together with Tim Chinkara, we'll be taking you through some of today's onboarding challenges and the detrimental effect it has on your recruitment and new hires. And then we'll have a look at how the new breed of onboarding solutions can solve some of those problems. But first, just a little bit of housekeeping. You can hear us, but we can't hear you. If you have any questions, you can use your little raise hand icon if you need any questions, and we'll be sure to answer them. This webinar is being recorded and will be up on our site after the webinar. So just a bit of background about who we have here today. So today, myself, Peter Forbes, and Tim Chinkara. Welcome, Tim. We'll be taking you through the webinar. Look, just a little bit of background about us. My background and my passion is really for solving people management issues through great technology. I'm a tech guy from background, but have been in the HR industry for about 20 years or so. I have many years working in HR operations and surrounding systems, particularly HRS and payroll. I only have about really 2.5 years in the onboarding space. And that's really because we didn't really recognize it as a true functional piece by itself before then. And that's something we'll talk about in the webinar. Tim, he's one of our account managers here at Navigo, and he spent the last 5 years in the recruitment technology space. Today, Tim will talk about some of his own personal experiences with onboarding, but he'll also relay what he's hearing from speaking to pretty much about 100 different organisations a month about their recruitment and onboarding processes. So welcome, Tim.
Thank you.
I think I've said that about 3
times
now.
Very welcome. I'm feeling very welcome.
So first I want to start with the topic of the webinar, and which is how onboarding is wrecking your recruitment process. And look, they're pretty strong words, and a lot of people at Navigo didn't like the title I came up with for the webinar, particularly because we sell an onboarding product. But really, my intention was to highlight how critical the onboarding experience is in the recruitment process, and we'll take you through some of the common mistakes we're seeing. And if you follow the recruitment and onboarding space like we do, you'll come across a bunch of research and information about how critical this piece is for obviously acquiring new talent. You know, you need to give them an offer and not lose them in that stage of when they're not a new hire yet, but also for retaining those new starters in that first critical period of their employment. So just to hear a few stats and headlines talking about onboarding and recruiting that we've kind of collected over the last 18 months or so. All of the studies and surveys I've read, you know, show a direct link between the onboarding process and retention, and particularly retention around those people who are new to your organisation, that critical first 12 months. And given what it costs to recruit, induct and train new hires, as employers, we want to make sure that these people stick around. You know, it's a really time-consuming, costly process to get good people on. The amount of coverage of this area and the interest in products like our product HR Onboard, it seems that you know, the first touch that your new hire has with the organisation, which is onboarding, is failing. So there's really a feeling that we see in the market that you know, recruiters and HR are really recognising the fact that the way they're currently onboarding people is not working. So now I'll pass you over to Tim, who will talk about some of the common onboarding mistakes and what we've seen and what organisations are telling us.
Yeah, thanks, Peter, and thanks for having me on with the webinar today. So before I get started on common mistakes, I'm going to give an example of my own story when I joined Navigo in September last year. As Peter said, I had quite a bit of experience previously in recruitment and recruitment systems. Now, at the time that I received an offer from Navigo, like many job seekers, I had 2 offers sitting in front of me, or multiple offers sitting in front of me. One was, of course, with Navigo, where I am now, and another was with a large online marketing group, which is an industry that I had quite a lot of interest in. Now, online marketing was very tempting, but they lost me when it came time to the offer. And that's because the offer was pretty lousy, the way that they actually put it across. It was a fine offer by way of remuneration and the job itself, but I wasn't impressed with how they rushed out an email with very little detail about the company, no information about the journey they wanted me to go on, no formal contract, and it was very plain boring. Now, let's not forget, this was a marketing-based technology firm. Okay, so the fact that they were putting out such a plain offer was really quite a turn-off. Navigo, however, gave me quite a great online experience through an online onboarding tool, HR on board, of course. The offer had a lot of thought. It was more detail about the company, a proper formal contract, and needless to say, Navigo won quite easily, and I've been here ever since and quite happy with my decision.
We're glad, Tim.
Fit that in with the boss sitting next to me. Now, a lot of what I talk about today will come from the discussions I have had with hundreds of organisations since joining Navigo, and there are some fantastic stories and some horror stories that I get. So what I want to cover off is offer chaos, okay? And that is that the process is disorganised. So the first question I ask any company is, how do you currently onboard new staff? Like I said, I hear some great stories, I hear some horror stories, but so many organisations now lack a proper onboarding process. And even if they do have a process, it can be a manual process, which relies on people doing exactly what they should do. Okay, and what I mean by that is that we can allow human error to get in. Okay, so you'll know if you have line managers involved in the process that they can have imaginations of their own and run wild with what detail they put in the contract and what they put in the offer pack. And no matter what process you have, it just won't work. This leads to a massive amount of time going into preparation, a lot of resource and wasted time chasing up with internal process, and a real lack of consistency in what is getting sent out to the candidates. The next thing that we've covered off here is that offer packs are overwhelming. Okay, so at present, a lot of organisations I speak to are sending out an envelope stacked full of forms to fill out, and most of them will recognise that this is quite overwhelming. When a candidate receives this, it doesn't matter how neat and tidy it is in the envelope or in the folder. When you lay out all of the forms, it becomes disorganised pretty quickly, and the initial excitement that someone has about getting a new job turns to, oh wow, I've got to go through and do all of this now. This causes delays in getting the offer out, of course. Now, when you hire a new candidate or a new starter, it is a candidate short market, okay? And as I said before, when I joined Navigo, I had a couple of offers in front of me. Now, if you have delays in getting your offer out, I speak to customers and prospective customers who can take up to a week or two just to get an offer out. Now, while this is happening, another company can come in and swoop on your first choice candidate, okay? So this is a real issue that we're finding with regards to the onboarding process.
And look, I can reflect on that. Like hiring for Navigo, one of our key strengths is in an onboarding solution is the speed in which we can get an offer turned around to the candidate from when they've come in and we said, yep, this is the guy we want to send the offer out to.
Yep.
It really helps.
Oh, exactly, and that came back to my personal experience. The offer from Navigo came out really quickly, and as I said, it was a really impressive offer. So the rest is history. So miscommunication is another issue, okay? And we'll see here we have a couple of examples of candidates who we wish to hire. New employees will frequently have questions about their offer that sits in front of them, okay? Changing jobs or accepting a new role over another role, or accepting one role over another is a big step, and it's an emotional decision to make. If someone has questions about that while they're unsure about the role, you need to be there for them, and you need to make it as clear and easy for them to contact you as possible. I go back to my own experience with regards to the email communication that I had from this marketing company. Now, I was dealing with a hiring manager who was in the US at the time, and it took 3 or 4 days to get a basic conversation and questions going about the particular offer. Whereas with Navigo, I had my questions answered within an hour, okay? And these are some of the questions, as you can see there. Simone has concerns about overtime and travel requirements. We can answer that in a second. John is not happy with the offer. The salary's been offered, and it shows with hands on the head. So if he has any issues with that, he can jump on and ask about the issues that he has straight away, okay? We don't want to leave it open for another offer to come in and answer the questions first. We've titled this one, Your Brand Just Got Trashed. Okay. So, are you a company of the future? Do you pride yourself on being ahead of the times? Do you put yourself out there as a company that's full of innovation and an exciting place to work? So, what I mean here is how much value do you place on your employment brand? Now, these forms here will probably look familiar to a lot of people. If you're currently running a manual paper-based onboarding system, this is what your offer-pack looks like when it's taken out of the envelope. So we have tax forms, super or KiwiSaver if you're in New Zealand, contracts, personal details, banking forms, emergency contacts, company policies. Now, what does this image say about your organisation to someone who's decided, yep, I'm going to work here? Does that scream innovation? Does that scream forward thinking? I want to give an example of a customer with HR on board, Swiss Vitamins, who are a very high-profile client of ours and have a great emphasis on their employment brand. The reason that they took HR on board on is that they wanted people to come through the door on day one and really have already bought into the culture of the company, okay? Not when they walk through the door and then train them. They want them coming in ready on day one and excited about working there. Now, if they're sitting here filling out all these forms, they're coming in, they're exhausted from completing the process, and now they've got to come in and learn everything. So what this has done is it has essentially kept that forward-thinking perception going about the organisation. Okay. What I also want to highlight, though, is that not only can it keep the perception about your organisation, so that we are a forward-thinking organisation, here is a great onboarding process. What it can also do, and a good onboarding process can also throw perceptions out the window. And what I mean by that is that we actually have government departments using HR on board. Now, government departments would historically have a reputation of being a bit old and traditional and probably behind the times a bit. But what we've found is that with our customers who are government departments using this, suddenly people's perceptions change and they get excited about working for a forward-thinking department and a forward-thinking government, which you don't hear forward-thinking government too often around the place.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I guess a prime example of this and your brand being trashed would be, and this comes back to it, does your employment brand or does your company have a perception of being an environmentally friendly company, for instance? And we use the example here of the Environmental Protection Agency. If you were to get a job here with an EPA, and these were the forms that came out to you, what would you be thinking?
Be thinking like the Simpsons.
Be thinking like the Simpsons, exactly.
Yeah, not a good image, and it's that employment brand matching the experience is really important.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. So hitting the ground running, and I'm not going to go through point by point here, but you'll get the basic idea. Now, what I want to use here as an example, and again, I go back to the examples of companies I've spoken to, and frequently I'll deal with organisations in the health sector, hospital groups and so forth. And compliance is a big, big issue here, likewise with government and other regulated industries. Now, I recently spoke with an organisation who have to have criminal checks carried out with their prospective employees. Now, these criminal checks aren't fully complete and carried out until the new hire comes in on day one and completes their forms. And this is where I talked about horror stories. They've had situations where 2 weeks in, they've actually had to make someone, or walk someone, because the criminal check has not come back so good. Now, think about not only the damage that it's done for the 2 weeks that you've had to pay this person out, but the damage it's done with your existing employees who have got to know someone and then found out they've been working with someone with a criminal history in that case. So, day one, your employee walks in. They aren't in the payroll. There's a stack of detail missing in the forms, and their desk isn't ready. You don't have a computer ready, okay? Now, any of these are enough to make a new employee think, what have I done? What am I doing here? The first few weeks of an employee's tenure are crucial in longevity, in their longevity as an employee with your company. Another point is how many forms and policies you have people filling on day one. And I speak to so many people who will go through a process and then they'll go through a big induction process on day one that can be easily completed online before someone starts. Okay, it's day one. Someone's coming into a job. They're excited about coming in. When they go home at the end of the day and they get asked, how was your first day? What would you rather a new employee say? Yep, great. I learned a lot. It was fantastic. I had a great day. I'm really excited about it. Or I filled out a whole bunch of forms in induction all day. It was boring paperwork. Okay, so think about that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'll pass back over to Peter, who's got a poll that we'd like to run with everybody.
Yeah, so thanks, Tim. What we want to do is just launch a poll just to see what issues do you have with onboarding. And I'll just launch that now. And if everyone just wants to select what is your main issue that you have with onboarding. So select one of those following. So I'll just leave that open for 20 seconds or so, just so we can see what people are doing and see what the biggest issues are. And these straw polls and webinars are really interesting because it either validates what we're seeing out in the market, or sometimes it presents surprises back to us. So I'll just wait a little bit longer. We've pretty much got everyone voted there. A few more coming in. And look, I know there's some limitations with our GoToWebinar software where you can't provide endless options here. But I'll close that out now and share the results. So what do we have there?
Back office processing. Yeah, that's a common one.
Poor candidate experience and forms coming back incomplete. And look, from our experience as well, what we see, the two biggest issues is the back office processing or the back office pain and that candidate experience. They're the big things that are letting down the onboarding experience.
Yeah, that's pretty standard from the conversations I have too.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so we'll keep moving. So what I want to talk about now is solutions for onboarding. We've looked at some common problems and effects around the onboarding process, and everyone's probably understanding of the impacts this causes, high turnover of new recruits, back office burden, losing first choice candidates. It's pretty obvious where the pain points are. However, you can radically improve your employee onboarding practices to save time, money, and make a great first impression with new hires. And the solution, as of most of today's best HR practices are, is using technology to help enhance and streamline a very human experience. And, the HR technology sector is going through a huge transformation at the moment. If you talk about the last 5 or 10 years with the progress of technology and software, one of the big markets that's disrupting is the way we manage people in organisations. And look, there's a clear advantage to organisations who improve their antiquated onboarding process. Candidates expecting a better experience, your back office will love you for it, and the technology is now available. So from a systems perspective, let's just have a quick look where onboarding fits in the picture. And in our experience, if you look at the offerings in the market, there's a real gap between applicant tracking / recruitment systems. Can you see my screen? Oh, sorry, I haven't closed the poll, which is a good question. Aha, here we go. Better? Yep. Awesome. Now you can see my screen. So in our experience, if you look at the offerings, there's a big gap between what the applicant tracking recruitment systems can do and what your HR or your payroll systems do. The recruitment systems, they do a great job in managing the sourcing and selection process of candidates through for any of your open positions. And if you look over the last 5 years or so, recruitment systems have become a must-have system in any HR department. No one is using, ads in the paper or paper-based systems to manage their recruitment process. However, recruitment only goes so far, as these systems usually don't go into preparing and sending offers, offer acceptance, and any provisioning of that new hire. Similarly, with the payroll HR systems, they tend to worry more about once you've hired someone. And so what you find is there's this gap in the middle is where the systems like HR Onboard have emerged, and what I think is becoming one of HR's, what I like to call a super niche, which is a functional area that is really quite small in the overall HR life cycle. It's well defined, but it's a really heavy hitter in terms of the impact it has on talent acquisition and management. And that's where our solution, HR Onboard, plays in that gap. But, there's also offerings there from the recruitment and the payroll systems offer some of that functionality. So let's take a look at how they compare. So what I'm showing here, there's kind of two main types of onboarding solutions available in the market at the moment. And we'll talk about the two main types. There's other solutions like your generic forms and workflow solutions that a lot of IT departments put into to take your back office paperless. But typically in the onboarding space, we see these two choices. You've either got a module of your core system, be that recruitment or your HRIS, or even a homegrown system. And then on the other side, you've got your best of breed, or what I like to call pure play onboarding tools, like ourselves with HR Onboard. And when it comes to looking at these systems, each organisation needs to understand what's suitable for them when it comes to your overall HR technology landscape, how many systems you're supporting, and a couple of other factors. Traditionally, HRS and recruitment systems have paid lip service to the onboarding piece. So I kind of say that because in recruitment, they kind of say, yeah, we do onboarding, but it's really just a checklist for recruiters to say, have you prepared the offer? Have you sent it? Have they come back and accepted it? And it's just a checklist. Whereas from a HR payroll side, it kind of focuses on capturing the information, but there might not be the acceptance of the contractor and any socialization for the new hire. So this little chart here sort of gives you a traffic light system of the strengths and weaknesses in both sides. And look, going down the list, one of the big key features is around integration. Best of breed onboarding solutions always win over. Like any best of breed system, they tend to be quite deep in the functional and the richness of the experience. But usually you're getting that and you're sacrificing integration. So that's typically where the best of breeds tend to fall down. So what I've said here that as the market's changing, where many more of these pure play systems like onboarding now often offer a suite of open APIs or web services to make it really easy to be able to push and pull the information out of that system. So having both a programmatic access to that information via APIs or web services, and then also manual options like CSV import and export that a user can do, ensures that the right system has the sort of source of truth for that new hire information. The other point of difference between the two systems is candidate experience. And really this is where pure play onboarding solutions excel, because that's really a core focus for those systems, is ensuring that that candidate, the first touch with that organisation, is as nice as possible. What you find, particularly with HRIS-based onboarding modules, is it's very focused on gathering information. The interface is like the rest of self-service, which in the Australian market is really not that pleasant in terms of the user experience. So the candidate experience is a real factor in best of breed. Another area to highlight is really the links to third-party services, and this is an emerging space in the onboarding segment that, as the proliferation of third-party services like identity checking, qualifications, automation of visa checking with the immigration department, being able to send the super member information to the super fund as they new hire. As these third-party services emerge and become more based on a web services framework, it's really key that these onboarding solutions have the ability to query or pass information to those other services in real time to either check a new hire's information or sign up that new hire for something else. And that's a space where the best of breeds are really starting to focus on, where we are as an organisation with HR Onboard, we're really focusing our product on. And look, this leads to then the last point, which is this continual focus on improving the onboarding functionality. And this is something, obviously, if it's just a small piece in the overall functional landscape, you're not going to really look at. Whereas the pure play providers, that's something we're really focused on. So let's just go have a quick squiz key features of onboarding solutions. And Tim's about to show you about how you accept an offer with our solution, HR Onboard, he's going to take you through that candidate experience of accepting a job offer. But just a couple of things to note while he's taking you through that is that there is a branded candidate portal there for the candidate to log in and accept their offer and view the offer. You can have automated contract builders. So the contract that gets presented has been built based on business rules that the customer has specified. The acceptance of that offer is all online. The ability to capture all the new hire information and produce the associated tax and legislative environment forms for, whether it's Australia or New Zealand or whatever region you're hiring for. There's notifications that are happening, provisioning capabilities such that that new hire, that packet of new hire information can be sent to your internal workflow systems and internal departments to make sure that candidate's ready for day one. So what we'll do is I'll hand over controls to Tim.
Thank you.
Just wait there. I'm going to make you the presenter.
Presenter? Yep.
Let's see.
Bear with me for a moment.
Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll stop sharing the screen. And
that's fine. It's on me now.
okay.
No worries. Thanks, Pete. So what I'm going to do is, as Peter said, I'm going to take you through the candidate experience with HR Onboard. So as Peter mentioned before, we talk a lot about your employment branding and your company branding. So I'm a new candidate. I've just received a job offer from Marin Company. Okay, I've had a text message sent out to me to tell me go and log in on your email, and we'll have step-by-step instructions on how to approve your offer. So I can click on this link and copy and paste this temporary password. When I come in here, I go to log in. The first thing I'll do is change my password. And I'll come into this online portal. So think about how you're doing things now, okay? And if you're using an envelope full of forms to fill out, think about how this would, how different this would be for your new employees and the experience that you were giving them. So as we scroll through, we can see here that I have a little welcome note from Marin Company, including my contract, which I can download. I won't download it now for interest of time. I have a short video here about the company and who I'm about to join. And I also have here my company profile, employee handbook, position description. Another cool little feature you'll see here, which is something that HR Onboard offers, is a LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn widget. And what this will do is it'll actually pick up my LinkedIn profile, as we can see here, and it'll show me people who I know working within, in this case, Navigo. So obviously Peter to my right here. Now, we talked before about the communication and being able to ask questions. So I'm just going to type this in. I want to bring my dog to work on my new role. So I'm going to send this off and see if there's someone within HR there who can answer my question. Is there someone there? Only if he's house trained. No, he's not. He's all over the place, so that's not going to happen. All right, but you get the basic idea here where we're keeping that clear, consistent communication. No. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to proceed to the next step.
I'd be an excellent recruiter in the back office.
It's fantastic. It's just great stuff. Of course, there's also a contact number here if we need to actually call up and have a conversation at any stage. So what we can see here is the forms that we discussed before: tax file, super choice, fair work, personal details, banking details. Obviously, these differ for New Zealand, and HR Onboard does cater to the New Zealand market as well for our friends across the ditch. Now, what we can see is we have details already pre-filled. Okay, so all of these forms which require this information have been pre-filled for our candidate. All I need to do is add in my birthday. So I'm going to make today my birthday. Happy birthday to me. And I'm going to make myself 21 today.
And one of the biggest bugbears I find is, forms that ask you, and I have this experience being a parent and filling in all those school forms, like the amount of times they ask you for the same information again and again. And the idea with an onboarding solution is you just capture the details once. And if you've captured those details in the recruitment phase, so you've already captured their name and address and their details, don't ask them that information again. You want to just pass that through to the onboarding stage.
Yep, so as you can see there, what I've been doing, as Peter's been discussing that, is that I've actually gone through and filled out my tax file declaration, my banking details, my choice of super fund, okay? So it is really easily laid out and set out. And we talked before about when you lay all of the forms out of an envelope, how overwhelming that can be. This is as easy as it gets for a candidate. What we're going to do here is we're just going to move to the next step, which is, thank you, which is to actually accept their offer. So we need to formally accept their offer. So what we can do is we can actually download these forms and we can actually agree to our terms. Okay. And again, it's very simply laid out so that the candidate can move through this offer in a systematic way. And company policies, the internet usage form, don't use Facebook at work. I think that's the main thing. And then we'll hit accept and continue. And what's going to happen is I'm going to get a code that I can enter for verification purposes, which I've got here now.
Just for those questions that are coming up during the webinar, we'll answer those at the end of the webinar.
Yeah. There's usually a lot of questions around this. All right, and now I've completed my offer. All right, so now I can download each of these forms if I like to keep on my own file. Okay, so we'll see there my employment contract, tax file declaration, all of these forms here where I can come back in, download them if I like, or I can log back in at another time and grab them. Now, as a candidate, that's a pretty fantastic experience, and it's really quick and simple.
Yeah, it's taken about 5 minutes.
It's taken about 5 minutes, which is good because I know we're running a bit short of time, so I'll pass back over to Pete.
Okay, no worries. Thanks, Tim. What I'll do is I'll take control of the screen again.
Thank you.
Okay, just get my presentation back up and going. And sorry, bear with me for 2 seconds while I get this going. Hopefully that's good to go. Beautiful. Yep. Takes a little bit of time. So there you saw, just a simple run through of how to accept an offer with HR on board. We'll come back to some of the questions later. But let's just show you an example of, how you can improve your onboarding solution. And what we're showing you here is just a Facebook post of a friend of one of our people at work, who we just came across randomly, but they were actually talking about our product, and this person had just been offered a job from Deakin University who's using HR on board, and this is totally unsolicited. Just she's copying into a Facebook post a text message she just received from Deakin Uni, which just said, "Hey, we've sent you an offer. Go and log in and check it." And just that first bit of love for her new employer is evident in that post, and I love it. I think it's just a great, a great realization of what you can do.
Yeah, we did get Jack's approval before we started sharing her Facebook posts everywhere as well, we should mention.
Yeah, but it shows you, and I think, it shows that it's a company worth going the extra mile for, and, there's a key statistic that says 70% of the labour market is going to be tech savvy, Gen Y, Gen X. Everyone's heard of these, digital natives, and the question is, are you catering for them? And, the thing you got to understand is Jack's also sharing that out to her network of people who are potential candidates for your company, and it's a big thing. Okay, so we're just nearly at the end of our webinar, but just a couple of key takeaways, I guess, from all this is, improving employee onboarding is essential. I don't think anymore it's nearly that you can't afford not to be doing this at the moment. As we've discussed, in the last 5 years or so, the time has really come for recruitment solutions, and I think now where we're at is that onboarding is that last piece of the recruitment puzzle that's been identified so far. There's probably a few things in that candidate acquisition space. That's a whole different story. But if you look at the cost of replacing people in that first year, there's a clear return on investment from both the back office perspective and employee satisfaction role. The second takeaway is that candidates have choice and they expect more. Like we said, the Gen Y and X are expecting a real online online experience with onboarding, and you want to be able to promote your employer brand and protect it as well with those examples. One of the interesting feedback we get from our customers using HR Onboard is they don't, from all the people who are accepting offers through the system, and there's hundreds and thousands of that going through each year, no one ever comments saying, oh wow, this onboarding solution is really great, because they kind of expect that when they accept their offer, it's going to be an online solution. So they're not surprised that an online solution is what's being offered for the candidate. They kind of expect it now. And I think that's a really interesting insight. And look, the last takeaway is getting the right onboarding solution. We sort of had a quick look at the best of breed versus all-in-one type solutions. Obviously, we're promoting a best of breed solution, so we're biased. But, in our experience, we recognize that best of breed is the way to go, but integration is the key. You've got to be able to integrate it with your other systems, and you need to be able to get the data out so you can report on what's going on. And, in our experience, a lot of onboarding from traditional vendors looks like you self-service that you're giving out to your internal staff, and a lot of the user interface is old and dated. And look, my advice for when you're looking at solutions is just don't look at what you're buying, what's on offer today. It's about the long-term vision of the product in the company, and particularly in a cloud or a software as a service environment where you're going to be receiving those updates on a quarterly or monthly basis, and it's really investing in the long-term future of that particular product. So look, if you do need to make a business case for onboarding solutions, we have a nice little calculator that's really easy to use. It asks 5 questions, but it gives you some indicative return on investment in terms of the time and the money you're saving. We've got a lot of questions, so we'll come back down to the questions. I just need to bring up my little GoToMeeting panel so I can see what questions we have. I'll bring that over here. Yep. Actually, I'll stop showing that. So I'll go to the questions because we have a whole bunch of them. So let me just bring them up so Tim and I can see them. Okay, so interesting questions, but let's go through it. So there's a question here about what about job-specific onboarding, such as linking connections, role clarity. I'm not 100% sure on what you mean by that, but in terms of if you're talking about offering a different offer pack and a different employment contract, depending on if they're casual or they're an executive position, or if higher educational, they're sessionals, that sort of thing. Obviously, the onboarding experience, what they're going to see from a candidate experience, the forms and the policies, you can have those different depending on their employment type, their status, their location, those sort of things.
Yep.
The electronic TFN declaration, yes. So in our system, we populate that form for you that you can then send to the tax file office. We'll also have out this year also the ability to submit straight from our system to the ATO through their SBR interface. A lot of our customers do the TFN declaration through their payroll system because obviously there's an old interface that ATO have for that. I think it's called the EDI interface, Electronic Data Interchange.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So it's there. More in love, thank you. Cost, we've got some pricing on our website for in terms of onboarding. Our sort of racked rate, these sort of systems, and look, obviously I'm going to talk about our system, but we price on a per transaction model, so it's a per onboard model. And our rack rate for onboarding is from $40 an onboard, with a small fee for setup if required. Integration options. Look, integration is always the name of the game. What we've discovered over the last 12 or 15 months with, implementing a lot of sites with HR on board is we need to make our integration story as good as possible. And then if the reciprocating system we need to integrate has also a good story from an integration perspective, then it's easy to do. What's been difficult for us is that there's a lot of legacy payroll systems and recruitment systems, particularly if they're on-premise. There's just no easy way to integrate with them, i.e. there's no programmatic doorway to push and pull the information from. So usually when it comes to integration, the bottleneck is not us. We have APIs to get push and pull information out of our system. It's with the participating system, be that recruitment or payroll.
Yeah, so it's not a limitation on our
no. But saying that, what we've done is then allowing, bulk upload through CSV file of new hires you want to push through HR Onboard, or extracting, accepted offer details through CSV as a base level to get you out. We have done some work with Chris21 to be able to produce a correctly formatted GTR file that you can then upload through the front end of, say, Chris21. But that's because Chris21 has the capability to do that. So we are working with systems who have that capability. Things about creating your own forms. What we do with HR Onboard, we have a base configuration that captures all the typical details that you'd want to capture from a new hire during the onboarding phase, and that's to satisfy tax, super, bank details, emergency contacts. If you've got additional information you want to capture or additional policies you need to accept, then that's fine. You can also add that into the system through configuration. At its back end, HR Onboard is a forms configuration system, so you've got the ability to configure additional data to capture. So a couple more questions about integration. The holy grail is pushing that data into a payroll system. As we discussed, it's whether that payroll system has the ability to accept new hire information through an API. And look, there's a lot of work. We talk to a lot of the vendors in the Australian market, and they're all working on improving their web services architecture around their products. So they understand that, integration is really the key, is key as a critical factor for these vendors now, as, more best of breed solutions come up and organizations want to say, hey, we want to take this awesome software product, but, how do we easily integrate it that it's not going to cost us an arm and a leg to integrate? We don't have to maintain it each time an upgrade comes along. So, I think that's just a matter of time. Talking about the instant message chat that we saw and that Tim demonstrated, that's actually a third-party plugin, but if no one's around to chat, they can leave a message and someone can be notified via email or SMS whether that's a problem. Another question we have, we've probably got questions, just time for one or two more, yep, is around contract extensions, and that's a really good example, because while we talk about new hires, what we see is a big requirement for, we call them rehires, you might call them contract extensions, that sort of thing. And yes, onboarding solutions can be used to basically revalidate or re-extend an existing contract.
Good onboarding solutions.
Good on. Thanks, Tim. But what that is about is you're probably not capturing as much information as the new hire process, so it's a subset of information, yeah, and that's something we're definitely doing with our product. So I think, look, hopefully we've answered most of your questions in today's webinar. If anyone has follow-up questions, there's a lot of information on our website. Our contact details are there if you want to talk to us a little bit more. You'll find them on the Navigator website or the hronboard.com.au website. Thank you very much for participating today and for listening.